So, yeah, this is back like 9 years ago. We had a Halloween special where we played through all of the House of the Dead games and the best ways we could possibly like play them. House of the Dead 1, we played with light guns on a Saturn, and it's brutal. Like, you see that flashing, man? That's how like old school light guns have to register inputs, is that you have to flash the screen white. So when you would play these games and they're running at a bad frame rate, you're seeing almost nothing but a blinding white screen until you get, you know, the PlayStation Eye controls or anything like that. Is the Wii version of House of the Dead 1 not legit? You're thinking House of the Dead 2. Yeah, the Wii does not have House of the Dead 1. One of the best packages you can get is on the Wii. You can get House of the Dead 2 and House of the Dead 3 in one package, but it does not have House of the Dead 1. Everyone has that misconception. It's all House of the Dead 2. Shooting a light gun and aiming at the screen with a cursor are two completely different things, am I right? When you're essentially playing any of these light gun games, and you're either gyro aiming or PlayStation Eye aiming, or you have like a light gun that is properly synced and like calibrated and it's good, those two experiences are genuinely different. The reason I like the Wii, because the Wii actually allowed for games like House of the Dead and Ghost Squad and other Sega games like LA Machine Guns and Gunblade to show up on it. It's great because those games, some games had reticles, right? And you just move the reticle around and painted shit, right? You're essentially like splatooning enemies in some way. That experience of having like the reticle on screen to just aiming and shooting, two completely different things, dramatically different things. For me, the experience of having a light gun and actually a light gun game where you aim, you shoot, and you don't know if you're going to hit the target that you want because where you're aiming is where you're shooting, like actual shooting in some way, is very different. Like almost no different than having a mouse. So when this game eventually does come out and you get a mouse and you could aim and just point at targets and shoot stuff, that's largely what's going on the Wii and stuff. Those two elements will just change the way I feel about certain light gun games. I don't think it's specifically bad because I think it's better than nothing, right? It's better that we have the game on a system than absolutely nothing, but genuinely like changes the experience. There's a hilarious moment at the very beginning of House of the Dead 1. If anybody has actually played House of the Dead 1, you know what I'm talking about. You kill the first enemy and you turn a corner, and it asks you to complete one of the most difficult shots in the whole game. This really tricky shot of one zombie running in front of the screen with another one in the foreground, and they both are attacking. They're both attacking civilians at the same time, and you have to like make a decision and make this shot really fast. It's the hardest. It's one of the hardest shots in the whole goddamn game. If you have a reticle and you're aiming, you're essentially lining this shit up and like, oh, I got him, and then I move over here, and then oh, I got him, and then we're okay, right? I can't even tell you. That shot is a breeze if you actually have light guns. If you just know where the aiming is, boom, boom, done. It's over. But when you have a reticle, you have to like line up the reticle and shit to make sure you're not like missing them. It is a very different experience, you know? That shot is still in this game, which is great. And there's a lot of stuff that has been preserved in House of the Dead Remake that I think is actually super cool. A lot of the gimmicks that bosses have are still here. And this shit is great, man. The remake of the intro? Look at this shit. Getting killed. This shit is awesome. It's like they're trailing back all this lore shit of like what's happening at the Curian Mansion and stuff. I love this intro, man. I think some of the presentation shit in this game is awesome. Although there's one thing that's missing. The music is missing. And it's one of the things that I'm very much looking forward to the PC version of the game. This, by the way, is a shot-for-shot recreation of the original House of the Dead intro. The music is missing. And the music's a big part of House of the Dead. They essentially have tracks that are House of the Dead-like, but not the actual original music in any way. So, once again, when there's an eventual PC version, oh man, it's gonna be so much better, dramatically better when you actually get Magician's theme when fighting Magician. It could be a rights thing. There definitely could be an issue with the original creator rights. Sega might not even have the rights to the original music in some way. I don't know. I have no idea. So, but what they have here is pretty good, right? Listen to it. It's House of the Dead music, but not House of the Dead music. It's not a bad job. And in fact, some of the moments as I'm like playing through the game, I'm like, it kind of sounds like a mix of House of the Dead and like Virtua Cop. It's not that bad. I once again, I love the original music. I really do. This is, well, don't blame this frame rate, because this is a cutscene. This is a video that you're watching back here. But the original music is not here, which is unfortunate. So there's a couple of gimmick modes. Original, weirdly enough, I played through the arcade mode over here, and it was really easy, like weirdly easy for me. Even with the crappy shooting and controls. But Horde Mode is actually nuts. I don't even know how you're supposed to keep up with Horde Mode. It's brutal. It's insane. They literally like triple to quadruple to quintuple the amount of enemies that are on screen. But I think this is probably better for multiplayer. This feels like I just have to press the goddamn fire button too many times. There's so many fucking enemies. I'm gonna highlight something I absolutely love. The title screens. When you have the title screens in the same way that they were in the classic House of the Dead, watch this shit. The blood and shit that comes down, I'm like, that's fucking cool. Title screens are fucking cool, dude. Oh, no. So, it's painfully clear we need like a PC version already. It already is painfully clear. Okay, I'm gonna lean back. Okay. We must be on performance mode. So he doesn't have a voice because I turned off the voice. Here, you know what? For the sake of comparison, let me turn the dialogue volume on so you guys can hear how much the game is going to tell me to reload. Reload. It's so hard. It's so goddamn hard. So, one thing I really like, they essentially put a physics-based system in with like the gore as well as the character models. So when you shoot enemies, you like blast them back, and like their husks and pieces of their bodies will go flying in like any general direction and collide with parts of the stage and shit. I'm like, that's kind of neat. I think that's actually a good touch. And yes, like the hole in their chest, you can bust their arm off. You can actually keep shooting their bodies when they're on the ground. What I like is that House of the Dead 1 was all about, you know, I'm gonna let this guy get thrown. House of the Dead 1 was all about getting a huge amount of like destruction on enemies and stuff like that. That's one thing they definitely wanted to keep, which is nice. I have run into some pretty shitty situations where in modes like Horde Mode, where there's a lot of enemies on screen sometimes, the game will be focusing on certain enemies and I will get hit from off screen, which never happens in Sega light gun games. That's like a rule that they make in the majority of their games, where you're not going to get hit from some crazy thing you can't see. In this game, I have been hit several times by some nutty shit that's like right off screen. And I'm like, what the fuck? What even hit me, dude? Like this. I'm looking at these enemies, but it focuses on this guy. Let me show you Horde Mode, which is actually new shit. Before I switch to the Pro Controller, I just want you to see how many fucking enemies are on screen. Look at this shit. Holy fucking moly. Like, your fingers are gonna be sore. Holy shit. That guy's headless! You're headless, buddy! What is your death trigger? Oh my god! I actually think the gore is awesome, you know? I think they did a really good job. They essentially emulated what Mortal Kombat does with their blood in many ways. And I think it looks quite good. In fact, I'm kind of blown away by how good it looks. And I love some of these cutscenes now. Exact same shot, but they make Rogan and G all fucking cool and shit. So you shoot one of these monkeys and you go a certain way. If I shoot the left monkey, I go right. Shoot the right monkey, I go left. Let's see how this actually works, okay? If I'm just gonna go to next chapter. Okay. Okay. This is better. I can tell you immediately that this is way better. Already. This is already way better. My god, dude, the Joy-Con gyro is awful. It's not good, right? It's still a huge problem, but significantly better. I would actually recommend, if you're gonna play this game, don't play with the Joy-Cons. I have to save this person? There's so many things attacking me. Oh my god. So this is Horde Mode, which means that there's a metric ass load of zombies trying to kill me. I think they did, like, it's funny, like, all the camera movements are still here. All the cutscenes have been relatively recreated pretty well. To me, that feels like there's a lot of love and care put into keeping the original House of the Dead experience as much as possible, just outside of the actual shooting part, you know? The fact that they had a deal with Nintendo to put this stuff on Switch specifically is the problem. That's like, they definitely put some effort into this shit. In the same way that Panzer Dragoon had the same shit. Like, it feels like they cared. But there's just some things that are off. Look how badass this room looks now. Holy dumb fuck. I don't know how to unlock that, by the way. Let's go up so you guys can see this shit. Look at this stuff. You can, like, shoot the walls out of these things. These guys look so fucking cool. Oh my god. I love it. So this boss acts pretty similar, right? You get in as many shots as you can here when he runs at you. And then at some point he becomes like a cutscene. Like, now he's a cutscene. You just can't shoot him. And that's the exact same. Until he knocks you off, then you are, like, able to fight him. Wait, it's over? Yes, this is an arcade game. That is, the entire experience of House of the Dead can be summed up in about 20 to 30 minutes. That's it. Light gun games are hella short. What's funny is that this game probably took them a couple of years to make, because you still just zip around the environment and do all this crazy shit. Yes, that's it. And funny enough, it's actually even shorter than House of the Dead 2. House of the Dead 2 is a much shorter game. But the cool part is that you get the original arcade version and the Horde Mode. They are two very different games when you go through. And there is the replayability on House of the Dead boils back down to the fact that you have a lot of optional areas to go to. In light gun games, they were the way they were, and that was it. But House of the Dead was kind of neat, where you could choose to go to certain spots, and certain things could happen to you that'll make you go to other spots. So the branching paths is kind of cool. But yeah, that's it. That's House of the Dead. Yeah, if you're asking, is like an old light gun game that's been remade worth like 20 to 25 bucks, I'd say yeah. I think that is kind of worth it. I think it's way more worth it when it shows up on PC, right? The PC version will eventually be much more worth it. It isn't free of issues, you know? I think I might give it a personal rating of something like, I think after this, it gets closer to a 7, you know? This alleviates a lot of issues of being able to shoot and aim. With this, it's a lot better. But there's still a lot of problems, right? The performance issues of the game, some spots like no original music. Those things hurt, you know? Overall, like, I think it's like between a 6 or a 7. But really, even if you came out with House of the Dead 1, and it had like House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn visuals, and it had light gun support, the best that game would be is like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, you know, for some people. It's all right. It's all right. And I think a lot of stuff they do in the game is better than the original in several ways. And there's a clear amount of retrospective from the original game that they put in here. They put a lot of effort into keeping all the same camera movement, keeping all the same enemy placements. They kept everything essentially identical. Most enemies act in a very similar fashion to the original, if not some act a little bit different in some ways. But they highlighted the things that made House of the Dead 1 popular way back in the day, and that was dismemberment, lots of gore, and shit like that.